Hey everybody, welcome to another Midweek Conversation as we talk about this past Sunday's message, the readings, the follow-up questions, reflections, anything like that, wherever the conversation takes us. So this past Sunday, we were wrapping up the summer in the Psalms, finished with Psalm 62, really looking at this incredible question of what does it mean to wait in silence? When the Psalm opens with "My soul waits in silence," what's that mean? Why is that so important? Why is that so necessary? So just really enjoyed that. We've got readings from the Psalms, from Micah, from the New Testament and 2 Thessalonians. So before we dive into the readings, or if we would dive into the readings, any questions, any thoughts?
I mean, this thought regularly comes up when we talk specifically at length about one single word, it being dumiyyah this time out of the Hebrew. But where would you send people to find, original language stuff, to just a very practical, because it reveals so much, right? And so how would you help people looking for,
Thayer has a good concordance. There's, and I don't know if it's an acronym, but it's literally like the helps word study, capital HELPS. Yeah, I had to double check. I can spell helps. Thayer has one, helps has one, or Strong's lexicon. Just great, bite-sized, and if you want, for if anybody who maybe is teaching or really just enjoys this sort of stuff, there's always stuff to be expanded on and dove further into. But what's helpful, especially like with the Strong's one, is they'll give kind of all right, here's a 3-sentence, what you need to know. And then if you're really studying this and diving into it, here's all the more stuff. Like here are the root words and the verb tenses and everything. But here's at least your 3-sentence, hey, understand this word.
Yeah, I just always think of that stuff when we have deep word studies like that, because it's something that is attainable for people at home. Like, never feel like it's just because we're in the office that we're able to do these things.
I don't have a physical book. Well, actually, okay, that's not true. I do technically.
You do have a strong.
I do have a strong. I do have a Strong's and a Thayer, but they're also online. Yeah, and so you could get it on your phone or, anywhere that you can go online.
Yeah. But another practical question to kind of build off of that idea of dumiyyah. You mentioned in the sermon that you have been actually practicing it for the last couple weeks after feeling the conviction of, not sitting in silence enough, not dwelling in silence. So practically speaking, how do you kind of go about doing it? How do you get started in it? Do you start with a smaller time and build up to a larger time, or you just kind of jump in?
So I just jumped in because I'm very much, I don't think this will shock people who have listened or know us. I tend not to do things in small measures. And so, because here's the danger if you start too small, and I get it. If this is, I think part of why I was able to jump in is because this is not the first time in my life I've practiced this discipline. I just unfortunately, embarrassingly fell out of the habit of it. So it wasn't so much like, okay, I'm trying something brand new. It was, man, I used to do this. I used to be better at this, and I really found the blessing in it.
Right.
I got away from it. So I had some degree of familiarity with it. If you need to work up to it, that's fine. I'm not downplaying that in any way, shape, or form. But my caution would be, and this is why I wanted to just start with the full time length that I recommended in the sermon challenge, a 10-minute window. And honestly, personally, I'm working on building that up, increasing that time as well. But I think 10 minutes is a good place for most people. Don't start so small that it's like negligible. You know what I mean? Like, all right, I'm going to spend 30 seconds in silence. I'm going to spend a minute in silence. At least pick, and that's why even as Tim and I were talking about, incorporating some dumiyyah into the service yesterday, I said, I'm doing at least 90 seconds, like at bare minimum 90 seconds, probably 2 minutes, because I want it to be long enough to actually let the silence settle in. So one, don't feel like you have to jump right to the 10 minutes. I would encourage you to try it. But if you need to, start with, if you're doing it personally, I would say start with at least 3 minutes. Start with at least 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then, build up if you have to. But I really don't think you'll need to. Don't sell yourself short. So the one practicality is identify a window where you've got that space. You know what I mean? Like, let's use parents whose kids come home from school, right? And they get dropped off by the bus. okay, I know my kid is going to be home somewhere after 4:05. Well, don't wait till 4:03 to start the quiet time and then be like, oh, it got disrupted by my kid blowing through the front door. You know what I mean? Like, find a window in your day where you actually have the time and you're like, okay, this isn't going to be disrupted. Second, and this goes to part of the prayer, like it's all kind of interwoven, but second, put your phone in airplane mode. I'd recommend using your phone to set a timer. That's totally fine. It's not like it negates it or anything, because we're very bad at keeping track of time without a watch right in front of us.
But you can still set it across the room.
You can still set it across the room. Set it in airplane mode. And so like I set in, so this was, I don't know, one of the times when I was first getting back into the habit of it, I didn't have my phone in airplane mode. And it just so happened that I got like 3 texts and a phone call. And so I sat down to start, and all of a sudden my phone buzzed. And that distracts me, right? And I was like, oh, okay, stop. And then my phone was buzzing and it was a phone call. And it was like, no, go to voicemail. And then my phone, and I was like, oh, goodness. So put your phone in airplane mode. Now let me cut off an objection. What if there's an emergency? I get it. Panic wants to ask that question. Fear wants to ask that, or just our selfishness of I don't want to spend this quiet time, right? Yeah. So what if there's an emergency? I have to be available. So I now make part of my prayer time to start it is, Lord, please let there be nothing emergency wrong with my wife or kids for the next 10 minutes. Like, please extra guard my family for 10 minutes, right? Because I don't want anything to disrupt this time. But I put my phone in airplane mode so I can't be distracted by it. 3 practicalities to starting it off. I kind of demonstrated when we started off dumiyyah time in the service. Keep the prayer simple and specific. You know, the word dumiyyah means to quiet the tumult around. And so I list out for God, hey, here is the tumultuous noise of today. And some days it's similar, some days it's very different, you know, but here's the tumultuous noise of today. Lord, would you please quiet it so that I may think on your salvation? And I just keep the prayer simple and then go into it. 4, practicality. I had this conversation with somebody immediately after the service, which I thought was really cool. It told me that they were really taking the time seriously in the service. They're like, man, I'm really going to have to work at this because it's easy to see how many distracting thoughts try and come into your mind, right? Yeah. So 4, and this is really kind of a point from the sermon too. Let me reiterate. This isn't a silence of like Eastern Zen mysticism emptying your mind. This is really a silence that is full. This is a full silence, but it's full with the salvation of the Lord. And so distracting thoughts may pop up, but having that anchor of salvation to come back to is so helpful. So don't lose sight of what you're trying to spend your time in silence contemplating. 5, don't be afraid to let that take different forms. I can say that there have been some times in this dumiyyah where I've been contemplating salvation and a song that we sung that, you know, service comes to mind, and I just find myself meditating on the words of the song and almost re-singing the song because it's such a beautiful, rich praise to the Lord. There are times where the Spirit's brought different scripture passages to mind. I had one dumiyyah time where I spent the entire 10 minutes just chewing on, though your sins are like scarlet, I have made you white as snow. And that was a beautiful time, right? So sometimes it's scripture that I'm considering. Sometimes it's a song of praise regarding salvation that I'm considering. Sometimes it's salvation of what has been done. Sometimes it's salvation of what is being done, right? The sanctifying aspect. So 4 and 5 hand in hand. Don't just go empty. Remember, it's filling the silence with salvation. Yeah. And within that, don't feel like it has to be, okay, well, so am I like just supposed to pray like a sinner's prayer for 10 minutes? Like, no, the whole idea behind dumiyyah is, right, what does the psalmist say? My soul waits in silence, for God alone is my salvation. Like it's God's salvation that quiets all the other noise. And so that is what I'm focusing on in this quiet time. Okay, where? Here's a practical aspect of where. Again, find somewhere where you are least likely to be distracted. Okay, I'm going to do dumiyyah at my house. front porch is incredibly noisy. There's cars. I live right off the street. There's cars going by.
Yeah.
It's at an intersection where people always get in crashes, so there's always horns honking. Then don't do it on your front porch.
Yeah.
Go down into the basement, right? You know what I mean? Like, hey, you know what? My kids are a little bit older, so I'm able to do dumiyyah when my spouse and kids are in the house because they don't need I don't have a 1-year-old or anything, so like I can do it when the rest of my family's in the house. They're all in the living room on their phones playing. Don't do it in the living room.
Yeah.
Like, go out in the backyard, right? Like, be smart about where you do it to minimize on the distractions as well. So like for me, if I do it, or when I do it here at the office, I go down to the sanctuary and I go down, I make sure it's a time when Rebecca's not here, isn't cleaning or doing any work in there.
There's not going to be someone vacuuming.
Right. There's no somebody vacuuming. The radio's not on. Sherry and Dawson are up in the office wing. And I tend to pick a time when like Sherry's not coming down to work on stuff in the sanctuary. And so I would like, okay, I know I'm going to be in a quiet space by myself. Great. Right. When Adeline and I do dumiyyah at home, we don't do it when the girls are up and about because they're 4 and 10 months and they need our attention. Like, okay, wait till they're in bed. Wait till it's quiet. Wait till it's peaceful. So I would say that's a practical component as well, the where and the when.
And I think it's really good. Looking all the way back at your first thing of kind of finding a specific time for it, I think that keeps us honest because I think one of the greatest temptations of it, again, someone's like you admitted to not being good at it. I will fully admit to not being good at it, right? But one of the greatest temptations is to sit down at a time when we know that it's likely to not actually be able to be completed so that we can kind of justify ourselves and be like, well, I went to do it. I just happened to be needed 3 minutes into my 10 minutes or whatever, or I got 3 texts in the middle of it, whatever it may be.
I had to get dinner ready. I had to do this.
I did my dumiyyah at like 4:59, and we usually eat at like 5. Like I think that keeps us very honest and accountable to ourselves to say, no, I know for a fact that this 10-minute chunk of the day, every single day, I am alone, and there are not distractions around me. And that is a responsible way of taking this very seriously and taking this very genuinely. And I do think if I had to add something to it, I would say maybe like a little bit of a expectation correction, which you already got into. I think with things like prayer and time in silence, we really like to hold other people's experiences up and let that kind of cast us down a little bit. I remember R.C. Sproul telling a story about meeting a woman who spent 9 hours a day in prayer and talking about how like he was like, oh, well, I will never be as good at prayer as she is. And she was obviously quite good at prayer, right? But that doesn't mean that we have to cast ourselves down. So if you're hearing Sam talk about 10 minutes, and you're like, 10 minutes, I could never do that. Don't let that stop you from trying. Like don't let that voice come into your head that says, well, clearly I'm not as good of a believer because I don't think I can.
Like I said, start with 3, do 3, see the blessing of it and be like, oh, okay, next day do 4, next day do 5, next day do 6, right? Shoot, man, some of you are going to come back and be like, man, Sam just did 10 minutes. I was spending 30 minutes a day in this. Like, all right, great.
It doesn't have to be a thing where we let other people's experiences kind of bring us down. It's about enjoying God and settling upon God and thinking upon him.
And I think, and this is, I don't want to say unbiblical because I think it backs up non-biblical. This is a non-biblical thought, right? We've talked about there are things that are unbiblical, that they are contrary to Scripture. Then there's stuff that's non-biblical. It's just not a biblical thought, right? But there's a musician I really like, Ben Rector, and he was talking about one of the songs he wrote, and there's a line in it, right, of like, what does it mean to catch your dreams if you can't sit alone and think without your thoughts all going wrong? And he's talking about like how he realized that he wasn't good at slowing down because when he slowed down, he didn't like the thoughts that came in. And so I think there's a fear of that for a lot of us, right? Like, and so I would say if that's you, and now this is where it goes back to a biblical thought, right? If that's you, if you're kind of nervous of silence time, like, man, what thoughts are going to creep, right? If you're scared of this or apprehensive of this or anxious about this or fearful of this, include that in your prayer, right? Include that in your prayer to the Lord of, okay, Lord, here's the noise that's threatening to drown out your voice. Here's been the noise that's been keeping me from hearing your voice or contemplating you today. And God, I got to be honest, I'm scared of what this quiet time might lead to, right? Like I'm scared of what'll happen when I do slow myself down. Please redeem this time. I want this time to be meaningful. May I never make a promise on behalf of the Lord, but I'm going to believe that that's a prayer God will answer, right? In honor. If we are truly going before him saying, Lord, I want to honor you with this, please do so for me. That's a prayer I'm comfortable praying every day because I believe God will answer that prayer. Yeah.
And I think that he wants his people to be silent before him and to trust him in that time. And I do think it like you talked about in the sermon, it really does go back to trust of even, again, very practically, are we willing to trust God with our thoughts? That, like you said, a lot of people, we don't like to sit alone with our thoughts. I tend to find that my thoughts are more distraction than actively hostile, but I still sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be so distracted. I should distract myself from my distraction. But I think it goes back to, am I willing to trust God with time in silence rather than saying, well, if I sit in silence, I'm just going to fall apart, you know?
Yeah. And I think, and again, for the fourth time, I don't know how many times, right? But again, this isn't a comparison thing, right? But part of why you asked at the start, did I start right with the 10 minutes? And I said, because I am kind of used to silence. This is my family makes fun of my brother, especially enjoy. He's like, man, that's just weird. And I think I told you and you were like, yeah, that's weird. I most days drive in silence.
That is weird. I thought about that during the sermon.
Yeah.
If you were going to say your dumiyyah time was in the car, I was going to say that is weird.
No, my dumiyyah time is not in the car because I want to focus on the road and be a safe driver.
That would be an irresponsible time for it.
Just eyes closed, driving down the road. Lord, I trust you for salvation right now. No, so dumiyyah time is not while driving, but I do most days drive in silence because I know how valuable it is to be able to sit and just think and appreciate the silence. I heard somebody say one time that the measure of a good relationship between people is, can they sit in silence and just enjoy one another's company? And so, one, I want to, on a minor level, not minor, it's important, but am I able to sit alone with myself in silence? Am I able to sit alone with my spouse in silence? Am I able to sit alone with God and sit in silence? And so I think, the beauty of this word dumiyyah is a helpful pursuit.
Yeah, and I think it really does remind us of, it is, in a way, it's very deep self-control because you are denying yourself of all the noise of the world. You're denying yourself of picking up your phone and reading something or watching something or listening to something. You're denying yourself of actively doing something with your hands. You're sitting there very silently and saying, I'm going to deny myself all these distractions that I gratify the rest of the day. I'm going to deny myself them right now and focus solely on God.
I had a conversation with somebody yesterday and they were like, man, what a perfect timing of his sermon, which is always so incredible when God does this. And make no mistake, it is only God who does this because I have zero clue what all of you are doing on a Sunday morning. Half the time I feel like I don't know what I'm doing on a Sunday morning, right? But someone was like, literally that morning as I was getting ready for church, I grabbed my phone and was scrolling through news stories and was just feeling so overwhelmed at everything that's going on. And it was like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then that morning it was like, oh, sit in silence and trust the Lord for salvation. And from eternity through eternity. It was like, yeah, it's a pretty good alternative to panic spiraling.
Yeah, that's a perfect conclusion to it, man. We can either panic spiral or we can sit and we can focus on God and we can let him uphold us through the day.
Yep. All right. As always, we'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, feedback, anything like that, anything you'd like to see us discuss in a future video or a follow-up video, please never hesitate to reach out, pastors@discovercommunity.org. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Did you get the fly?
Hey everyone, Pastor Sam. Thanks so much for joining us on a midweek conversation. We hope it challenged you, encouraged you, kept this past Sunday's message at the front of our hearts and minds throughout the week. As always, if you have questions or comments you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Otherwise, you can find more content like this here on our channel. Make sure you subscribe to stay up to date, and we'll see you next time.